You're now watching the Mike Missanelli podcast on the BetRivers Network.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Mike Missanelli podcast. How we doing today? It's a Tuesday. It's a little gray outside, and we're due for a big rainstorm, which is going to bring flooding. So stay inside and make sure your house will stay afloat. The Mike Missanelli podcast is brought to us by BetRivers, and we intentionally wanted a couple of days to go by to process what happened on Sunday with the Philadelphia Eagles, because we know the town is in an uproar right now. And we're going to try to get through this little by little without the overall angry emotion that all Eagle followers felt on a Sunday night. So let's face it, this is the biggest mess that we've seen with the Eagles in a lot of days. And it's hard to believe what has happened, that this team, once 10-1, could just fall off the cliff with a variety of maladies that have forced them into this situation as they find themselves now going into a playoff week. And frankly, we don't know what's going to happen in this playoff game. You know, the upside of it is it's the playoffs, and it brings new life, and maybe they can find a way to rally and play a lot better than they played and maybe win a playoff game, or if the playoffs shake the right way, maybe even win two playoff games. The other point of it is that they're done, that they're cooked. They have come apart at the seams. There is no way they can get it back together this quickly. So let's just examine here. This was a team that was once 10-1. So it's a collapse of epic proportions. The last 5 of their 6 were losses. Now, you would have to go back to 1986 to find a team that started 10-1 and only wound up with 11 wins. So this is historical. It's a historical collapse. And I know, like, these old school Philadelphia fans that are in town, they go back to the one year, the 1964 Phillies collapse. Is it like that? It's sort of like that. I mean, when you think about where this team was and where they are now, the collapse is hard to believe. So let's see where we are right now, and then we'll kind of go backwards. All right, the Eagles are now the 5th seed in the playoffs, which means they will have to go to Tampa Bay, and the game is scheduled for Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, here's the way I look at this, and you know that I am not a homer by any stretch of the imagination. I think Tampa Bay stinks, and as evidence of their stink, in a must-win game, they didn't score a touchdown against the worst team in the league, and they won 9-0. And after the game, they're interviewing Baker Mayfield like he was the conquering Roman gladiator. They won 9-0. They stink. So when I look at a team like this, I look at the Eagles discombobulated. I look at the team they're going to play, and I always go with the better roster. The better roster is the Eagles. So I actually think the Eagles are going to win this game. It doesn't mean anything in the overall scope of things that they're going to win the game, because if they have to play the 49ers, they're going to get housed. But I do believe that their talent level and the fact that the mental mindset has to be different because it's the playoffs are going to make the Eagles play a little better in this game and win the game. They've got a lot of people coming back in this game. Their offensive sets will be complete. DeAndre Swift will be back. A.J. Brown will play. Devontae Smith will play. And I just think that overall, the quality on their roster is going to be better than what Tampa Bay is going to present. Now, I could be wrong, and this team could be completely done. And if they're done, then there's going to be hell to pay, which we will discuss in a second. So right now, as we look at the rest of the playoffs, let's look at the NFC. San Francisco, even though they lost the last game, didn't matter. They are the number 1 seed. The Cowboys will host the Packers. The Lions at the 3 seed will host the Rams, and the Bucs and the Eagles. Now, in the second round, here's what could happen that's most favorable. The Rams could upset the Lions. And if the Rams upset the Lions and the Eagles win, the Eagles would not have to face San Francisco in the second round. Best case, that's the best I could do for you here. right? But the way it's probably going to shake out is that the 49ers will play the Eagles in the second round because the Detroit Lions are stronger than the Rams. And this subplot of Matthew Stafford going back to Detroit isn't going to be enough for the Rams to win that game. So the second round is most likely going to be the Lions would have to go to the Cowboys and the Eagles would have to go to San Francisco. In the AFC, the Ravens are sitting there laughing at everybody. They're waiting for everybody else to beat each other up. The Bills with a tremendous rally over the second half of the season and a great win over Miami in the last game of the year are the 2 seed. They would host the Steelers. The Chiefs at the 3 seed would have to host the Dolphins. And then the Texans and the Browns, who cares? So your winners, I believe, projected will be the Bills, and they would then have to go to the Texans if the Texans beat the Browns, which I think they will because they have a home game. And then the Dolphins would have to go to the Ravens and sayonara for the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins upset the Chiefs. Now, if it goes to chalk, obviously the Chiefs are in there, the Dolphins are not in there. That changes the whole landscape. But that's the way I see the playoffs. Not that it really matters because what we know is that the Philadelphia Eagles don't have any future in this playoff. So how did we get here, folks? All right, let's look at how we get here. Let's start with Sunday's game. And I watched the game, and I was stunned at what I was seeing. If I didn't know any better, and maybe I don't know any better, it sure looked like the Eagles have quit on their season. When you look at the effort they put into that game, they were demolished. They were dominated by an inferior Giants team. Now, there's 2 ways of looking at that. Number one is you go, okay, well, why did they play their starters? It was very unlikely that they were going to get that higher seed anyway because the Cowboys were going to beat the Commanders. However, when the game started, that was still in question. The Commanders were hanging with Dallas, and the Eagles still gave up. So maybe in their minds, this Eagle team, because they're mentally weak at this point, maybe they thought, well, listen, there's no reason for us to go out and spill our bucket because it's not going to matter anyway. The Cowboys are going to win. And they took that mindset into the game. And when you take a mindset like that into the game, you have no chance to beat the other team, no matter how bad the other team is, because the other team is playing hard. It's their last game. They're going to play hard. They want to have some pride. They want to get out of there with a W and make themselves feel good in the offseason. Their season's over. So they got pulled apart like a dog toy in this game. And they're a team that has fallen and can't get up. I'm going to use every cliche I can here, and that the season is fatally over, or the playoffs can refresh them and in mind and spirit. So we'll see if they have anything left. I was looking at that game that Sirianni pulled the starters by the end of the second half, and I originally looked at this game as they need to get it together in this game. They need to play their starters because they're so low down. They need some momentum. They need to feel good about their offensive attack and what they're doing on defense and the scheme. They needed to play well to convince themselves that they were a good game. And they didn't. They did the exact opposite. And Sirianni waved the white flag. And at the time he waved the white flag at the 2-minute warning of the first half, I'm thinking, you're letting them off the hook. You've let your team off the hook. You need to send them back in the second half and say, we got to get a couple drives going. We got to find ourselves. We got to get a little roll here to get some confidence. If we're going to lose this game, let's go down with some momentum. And they didn't do that. The head coach gave in just like the players gave in. So let's look at this whole situation here. Either the players didn't look at this game as important to them, or there was no motivation that Sirianni can give them at this point, which means they have quit on the coach. And if they've quit on the coach, they have absolutely no chance to win a game next Monday night. Here's the situation now when we do the autopsy of this team and how they got here. It started out with the San Francisco 49ers taking their heart in that regular season game. It then went to the Dallas Cowboys taking that heart and putting it in a crusher. And from that point on, you saw the hits, they kept coming. the ridiculous change of defensive coordinator, which put a doubt in the air in that locker room to give the team the uh-oh moment. Oh, my God, we must really be in desperate shape if they're going to do a desperate move like that. That puts doubt in the players' minds. Now, however that came down, and I believe it was a Lurie edict, and until somebody proves me otherwise, that's what I'm going to say, that Sirianni was merely a puppet, because I've seen this before with Jeffrey Lurie when he did it with Mike Groh and Doug Peterson. I believe that this coach was ordered to change defensive coordinators in a panic move. So, but if it's not that, Sirianni has no clue what he's doing. So I'm almost giving the head coach the benefit of the doubt that this was an owner call and it wasn't him, because he can't possibly be that stupid to introduce that kind of doubt at the end of a season to change a defensive coordinator and think that that was going to just go smoothly. Then we had A.J. Brown going rogue. There are a lot of people out here who believe that A.J. Brown had the right to do whatever he wanted to do because he's a star player. So I asked those people this question. What good does that do? And I have to laugh at the people that say, well, you have to listen to what A.J. said. A.J. didn't want to say anything negative and because he didn't have anything good to say. Don't you think that puts out the same message? If you make an overt attempt not to talk, that you're giving the same message to your locker room? The locker room's going, oh, my God, there's AJ. He's got the red ass. Oh, man, we must really be in trouble. It's the same effect. So did that help? No, it didn't help. And then we move on to what the veteran leadership in this locker room is. You would think that with guys like Brandon Graham and guys like Fletcher Cox and some veteran players like Kelsey and Lane Johnson, that they would have enough veteran leadership to keep this thing together. Guess what? They don't, because those leaders had no effect in the locker room to bring this team back together. And then finally we get to Sirianni. I've been ambivalent on Sirianni. Now, he's a guy that was the coach of a team that got to the Super Bowl last year. But he really has never convinced me he's that great of a coach. So I'm laying in wait this whole time to see what kind of a coach he is. And I kind of found out this year. He doesn't have the chops to pull this team, which is in turmoil, out of turmoil. And if you're a coach who can't pull your team out of turmoil, then you're not a very good head coach. And that's where we stand right now. So what is the future of this head coach? Well, it's a no-brainer if they lose to Tampa Bay. There's no question in my mind that he gets zipped and the whole staffs get zipped. However, here's the other side of that. Jeffrey Lurie, when he finds a coach that nobody has heard of, is introducing the concept that he's smarter than everybody else, that he discovered oil on the Little League field in Delco. And the world should take note because he's a smart son of a gun. He found Andy Reid when nobody thought about Andy Reid. They didn't know if he was Andy Reid or Donna Reid. And so this is the Sirianni, the next shiny new toy that Lurie found. And if he goes back on that, people are going to think Lurie doesn't know what he's doing. That's the only possible thing that I can see saving Sirianni, that Lurie doesn't want to zip him too soon because it makes him kind of look ridiculous. So let's go a step further. I believe the following will happen. Sirianni saves his job by beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It's not going to be a landmark victory. If they beat the Bucs, they're going to skate by. But would that be enough to save his job? I believe it would be. Because if you're realistic, even if you get bounced by the 49ers the following week, you know you're not as good as the 49ers anyway. So what's the point of firing Sirianni after he delivered you a playoff win? What Lurie would then do, and I'm sure as I was sitting here, guaranteed that he would demand that Sirianni bring in an entirely new offensive and defensive coaching staff. And most of it would be from Lurie and Roseman's research that they have found the next shiny toy to be defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator. And at that point, Sirianni's got a choice. Either accept those terms or get down the road. Now, what do you think Sirianni's going to do? He's a young head coach. These jobs are coveted. You think he's going to say, phenomenal to Jeff Lurie? He's going to take the job under those circumstances. So there you go. Let me review. Eagles beat Tampa Bay, save Sirianni's job. Lurie picks his staff. Sirianni goes along with it and accepts it. And we proceed next year with some tinkering, and we'll see where the Eagles go from that point on. All right? There are names that people float around all the time. Like Wink Martindale is the next guy. Well, you bring him in defense coordinator because he blitzes. I don't think that's going to happen. He's too well known for Lurie. Bring in Frank Reich. The people that keep mentioning Frank Reich, I would love to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you. What on earth has Frank Reich done in this league to be considered to be brought back? This guy's got a Teflon ass. He has failed now with 2 head coaching jobs. What is so special about Frank Reich? Listen, all due respect, Frank, you haven't had enough accomplishment in this league to be considered. You got to go completely in a new direction. All right? Game analysis versus the Bucs. What have defensive coordinators done to the Philadelphia Eagles lately to make them sputter? You saw it against the Giants. Wink Martindale blitzed 84% of the time. When they blitz Jalen Hurts, he has become befuddled. And the offensive scheme isn't sophisticated enough to combat heavy blitzes. Why? I don't know. It seems like every other offensive coordinator can see, hey, they're blitzing. Hot receiver, tight end, do something. When the other team blitzes, Jalen Hurts immediately goes into a shell. And it's not that difficult. And so Todd Bowles, who is the 3rd highest blitz rate defensive coordinator / head coach in the league, is going to do what on Monday night? He is going to blitz the crap out of the Eagles. And we'll see. Like I would like to call them right now. Hey, guys, listen, I don't know if you heard. I don't know if you heard, but Todd Bowles, he's going to blitz. They're going, oh, really, Mike? I'm glad you called because it's Tuesday. We would like to put our defensive game plan. Is that what he's going to do? Yeah, this is how little faith I have in the Eagles to adapt. That I would have to call him and say, guess what? Todd Bowles is going to blitz, fellas. All right. I got it out of my system. I hope that wasn't too emotional for everybody. Let me bring in producer Darren. Darren, you just heard my diatribe. Your thoughts?
Well, the first thing I'll tell you is, the Wink Martindale. First of all, was he let go? That I missed that yesterday. Was he fired?
Yes.
Okay, I missed that.
He decided to move on.
Okay, he's moving on. So you think that Lurie wouldn't go for a veteran defensive coordinator? He has noted to be in love with Vic Fangio and Fangio's style. So I don't know that Martindale would scare him necessarily. I do think you're right.
No, it's not. Martindale doesn't do a Fangio style. Martindale isn't over.
Oh, I know. I get that. I'm just talking about a veteran presence.
Yeah, I don't believe he will bring in a big name guy.
I think you're probably right. I think I like Nick Sirianni. I really do. I like that he delegates as a head coach. I like that he's not very over particular one side of the ball. But he's in a bad spot. He just is. We've talked about the meddling owner and the general manager that thinks he's Newt Rockne. They are going, like you said, to have a heavy hand in who the new coordinators are going to be. And rest assured, they were going to have new coordinators. They're probably going to have a lot of new assistant coaches as well. I do not think they're going to beat Tampa Bay. I have said for the past few weeks that they're one and done. I know they're getting some personnel back. Slay is back. They'll have a bunch of guys that have been injured coming off and guys that they rested last week back. I get all that. They're not beating anybody right now. And you know what? It probably is the head coach's issue right now because he has lost control of the sideline in front of our eyes. He's lost control of the locker room, I think. But it is really difficult, man, to fire a head coach. It's happened, but it's really difficult to fire a head coach a year after he went to the Super Bowl. And if you don't think that's weighing on the decision, I'm telling you, I promise you it is. Now, it also helps Nick, like you said, that Lurie plucked him off the green tree, as we say, right? So he knows with Nick, he's going to have a big say and big hand in on who his coordinators are going to be. So I think for those reasons alone, Nick keeps his job, win or lose Monday night. And what a crappy game Monday night for a playoff game. My God. So yeah, I think he sticks around. The locker room bothers me. It really bothers me. You're right. AJ Brown should keep his mouth. He just comes out, play the company line, and move on. You say so much more when you say, quote unquote, my mother taught me not to say anything negative, so I won't say anything at all. That's 10 times worse than him coming out and saying something negative. It's worse. So, and there's a couple, Kelsey's out there saying the company line. I get it. Brandon Graham's saying the company line. Lane Johnson saying the company line. These guys are veterans. They've been there forever. They were they played in a Super Bowl. Fletcher Cox saying the company line. That's fine. I get it. What else are they going to say? I had somebody go, Dallas Goedert. How could he say all that stuff that they're ready and they're going to play? What do you want him to say? What do fans want these players to say? These guys want jobs next year. Even the ones who are considering retirement, they want that option of a job. The locker room is crap right now, though. It really is. They're fighting on the sidelines. I hate seeing that stuff. But I think Nick, at the end of the day, I think he's going to keep his job. I think he's going to be.
Yeah, I absolutely do not
Yeah.
think he's going to keep his job if they lose to Tampa
I
Bay.
know.
This is a historic collapse. You can't bring a guy back who has been the overseer of a historic collapse. So
Yeah.
Lurie would have to bite the bullet. I get it. It wouldn't make him look good to bite the bullet for two reasons. Number one, this was his handpicked guy. Number two, he did go to the Super Bowl. But you can't justify bringing a guy back who would have lost 6 of his last 7 games, including a playoff game to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You just can't. There would be too much heat on the guy to bring him back for next year because nobody would believe in him. The fans, and more importantly, the team. And so if you gut him by demanding that he bring in whole new staffs, you've kind of neutered him anyway. So what would be the point?
Well, you said it earlier. He's going to
I believe
he's not going to walk away if they say that to him. He's going to say, I'll keep the job because there's only 32 of them in the whole world.
Well, what I'm saying is that if you're Lurie, you can't even put him in that situation if they lose this game.
But
because nobody will believe it.
Don't you already know that you put him in that position by hiring these guys as coordinators?
No, you didn't. You never thought you put him in a position where he would blow a season, where he would lose control of his team, where he would lose 6 of his last 7 games. Those are circumstances that push it over the top, that you can't ignore, that you hardly didn't expect. If you were to say to Lurie, hey, listen, your guy that you picked is going to be 10-1 and blow a season and have a locker room revolt. Are you okay with that? What would he say? Of course not. Right. I'm not okay with it. So then what would make it okay now if he does it? It's just not going to happen. Now, again, you don't think they're going to beat the Buccaneers. I do believe they're going to beat the Buccaneers because I think the Buccaneers stink. I'm reading some tweets over the week. The Buccaneers are going to win because they have heart. Where the frick do they have heart? They were 9-8, and in a must-win situation, they won 9-0 with their quarterback throwing for 115 yards. What are you kidding me?
They're going to win.
That's not a good team.
You already said why they're going to win. The quarterback is going to struggle on Monday night because he's
what? The other quarterback's not going to struggle? The other quarterback stinks.
What's he going to struggle against? His defensive line? He can't get home to save their lives.
He struggled against the Carolina Panthers.
He can't.
He threw for 115 yards against the Panthers last week.
This line can't get home. What's he worried about? He's going to have all day in the pocket if he wants.
All right, listen. This is a ridiculous conversation because you're giving credit to Baker Mayfield. Like where on earth does this come from? Baker Mayfield all of a sudden, like they're playing Aaron Rodgers, who I'll get to later in this show, by the way.
Later. But no, you're right.
No, this is I do believe, and I'm the last. I see this team is broken apart, and if they're playing a better team, I go they have no chance to win. They're playing a team that barely survived their division and won 9-0 last week. Come on.
I see I see your point about Baker. You see what you made me do? You made me defend Baker Mayfield.
We go
See what
because you got to look at it. You go, if he listen, the Eagles defense stinks. The Panthers are the worst freaking team in the league, and he struggled against them.
I agree. They were also
All
playing
right.
for their lives. They knew the GM was getting fired. But that's
All right. Anyway, we discussed all the ramifications, and it'll be interesting to see what the result will be. Again, if they win, I think Sirianni's saved, and there'll be a different staff that he has to coach with next year. If he loses, I don't think there is any way that you can justify bringing him back, and I know Lori probably feels the same. All right, well, that will conclude today's podcast, the Mike Missanelli podcast, brought to you by BetRivers. We'll have another one as we preview the big game at the end of the week, the Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Oh, my God. From where this season started and where we thought it would go to this, where they have to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to get to a game where they're going to get demolished. Just think about that transaction here with the Eagles season. All right, everybody have a great rest of the day. Stay dry because the rain is going to come. You can reach me on email, mike@mikemiss.com. I've got a cameo to do today. You want to get a personal shout out, just go to cameo.com, put my name in there, and I'll give you a personal shout out. I really like doing those. It's a way to stay in touch with the people. And you can check me out on Twitter, MikeMiss25, where we always give you little tidbits during the week of what I'm thinking about and what's upcoming on the Mike Missanelli podcast. So for Darren, I am Mike Missanelli. Thanks for listening, everybody. Spread it to your friends and neighbors, and we'll catch you later this week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.